He's a control freak. He got everybody in the garden on pins and needles. The other owners know this. That's the bad thing about it. And I told they're going to let this end up happening like something happened to L.A. Clippers. It's that bad. But they won't talk about it. It's that bad.
Do you consider James Dolan, Charles, on that same level as a Donald Sterling?
Yes.
You believe that he's a racist, James Dolan?
I mean, he's on the level. I mean, you can put, level can be, according to you building a house or you build a pyramid. And this and that, this man has been around for a long time. I ain't heard nothing good about him. Is there a resolution that can be met? No, some things can't be solved.
Strong words from Charles Oakley. He was making noise on SI Now with friend of the program, Maggie Graymoose. And Oakley continues to make noise about James Dolan. And at this point, I don't think he's doing himself any favors. Now, I'm all for Charles not backing down. We know how he feels about James Dolan. But at some point, you got to take steps to move forward on this. And I think that Oakley might be doing more harm than good. When you say that James Dolan is in the same league as Donald Sterling, that's a very bold statement to make. And you're amping this thing up even more. And this seems like a story that after, I guess, the commissioner met with Michael Jordan and it sounded like there was some resolution, no one told Charles Oakley because he wasn't happy with that meeting. He's not happy with the way things now. And I don't see this getting better anytime soon.
Yeah, a couple things. First and foremost, when you look at the Donald Sterling reference, and then you have the great follow-up by Maggie asking whether or not James Dolan, in Charles's belief, if James Dolan is a racist. If you looked at ineptitude, when Sterling was running the Clippers and was the owner of the Clippers, yes, you could draw the comparison and look at the way that James Dolan is running the Knicks and just say you are looking at two owners that at that point in time had no idea of how to put a winning product on the court. We talked about yesterday, I don't think James Dolan is a racist. I don't think James Dolan is a bigot. So I don't think you need to go to that level. When you look at Charles Oakley and what he's doing now, and you had a lot of people, and myself included, when we backed up Charles Oakley after that night, that Wednesday night when they took on the Los Angeles Clippers and he was dragged out of Madison Square Garden and promptly arrested, and we said, what is going on here? You can't go out there and treat a former player like that. But Charles Oakley has got to go out there and let bygones be. He's got to start to let some things go. I get that James Dolan embarrassed himself when he hopped on 98.7 ESPN Radio and told Michael Kay that, and threw it out there that whether or not Charles Oakley is an alcoholic. You can't go out there and do that if you're the Knicks owner. But at some point in time, there has got to be, you got to start to let things go. And unfortunately for Charles Oakley, he's not letting anything go.
Yeah, and Maggie did a great job in that interview. Another thing that came up was, where are the Knicks teammates backing up Oakley on this? You haven't found them? No. You haven't heard from any. And all the public opinion that was behind Charles Oakley, because Knicks fans are so frustrated, not with this situation, but just with the Knicks in general. He had everybody on his side, and now it seems this could sort of start to turn the tide. And I'm not saying Dolan should get off scot-free here.
No.
A lot of stuff went wrong, but Charles Oakley wasn't exactly a model citizen at Madison Square Garden that night, too. And the more this lingers, the more people are going to start second-guessing what they think, who they're for, and then the next thing you know, it turns into an even bigger mess than it was in the first place.
Right. The perception of James Dolan's already established, right? Go back to 2007. Then NBA Commissioner David Stern, I'll read the exact quote. It demonstrates that they, the Knicks, are not a model of intelligent management. That's after the Anuka Brown-Sanders scandal, right? So you look at it, the Knicks have not been well run under James Dolan. His perception is established, and it's real. It's reality. When you look at Charles Oakley, now you're starting your perception of Oakley, right? And the way that he's conducting himself after this has transpired, when he says, you know what, I had to be dragged out of the NBA offices with Michael Jordan on the conference call and Dolan there, an NBA commissioner there. You thought there was a meeting of the minds and there was going to be an Oakley night. You know what? He gave you a conflicting story of that. He said, basically, I had to be dragged out of those offices just like I was dragged out of Madison Square Garden. Your perception of Charles Oakley is now starting to change, unfortunately, as time does go on and his behavior does continue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said he'd be willing to go to jail to prove his point. And I get his anger. If someone went on the radio and said that about me,
no doubt,
heard I'd have that kind of problem, I wouldn't be so forgiving. But at a certain point, you got to move forward on this, or else you're just going to sink further and further down.
Well, and then that is what Jordan and the commissioner tried to go out there and do. You don't have to love everybody. You don't have to like everybody. And certainly James Dolan has been disrespectful to Charles Oakley over the years. But you know what? Oakley has got to go out there and say, okay, we've all made mistakes. We both made mistakes. I'm going to be the better man. I'm going to be the bigger man in this instance. I'm going to forgive. Let's try and move on. And unfortunately, he's not doing that.
Sometimes we're going to be talking about this for a long time.